SuperTalk Mississippi Media production.
Come see your locally owned and operated Linton Glass for all your glass needs. No matter what glass you need to replace, you can count on Linton Glass. Call us today at 601-835-4336 or find us on the web at lintonglass.com.
Oh, yeah.
Good morning, Mississippi.
Everything gonna be all right this morning.
Mornings with Richard Cross.
Oh, yeah.
Here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Woo! Now, when I was a young boy, at the age of 5, my mother said I was gonna be the greatest man alive. But now I'm a man, way past 21. I want you to believe me, baby. I have lots of fun. I'm a man.
Yeah, baby. I think it's the way to put it. Good morning to you. How you doing? A beautiful day on a Friday morning. Dave Hughes here. In for Richard as I am on Fridays, but there is a change this week. If you've been listening this week, and certainly you should have been, Richard has had a different sidekick. Lance is off. I don't know what Lance is doing. Probably it's better if we don't know. We can't be forced to testify then. But we got Will in the booth. How you doing this morning, man?
I am making it. It's been a long week for me because when you get to fill in on early in the morning, it's not like you get to go home in the afternoon. You got to still do your other job. But I told Richard this earlier this week. Monday's not that bad. Tuesday gets a little rough, and then Wednesday, and then by Friday, I'm an old veteran. Okay,
yeah,
I'm an old veteran. But then Monday rolls around, and I'm back into my normal thing, and I'm waking up early in the morning again, and I need to sleep in. So.
Well, you and I talked yesterday about some other things off the air. I wanted to text you back on like Monday or Tuesday and get on a phone call, and I was like, this man hopefully is getting a nap. I'm not going to bother him today. So I let it go for a few days.
I didn't get home last night until about 9 p.m. We had some international visitors that me and JT Mitchell from the news team met with. Pretty interesting. They were from Africa. They are most of them from Nigeria, a few from Kenya. And so we got invited to this thing. We weren't able to make the daytime thing, but they invited us to this dinner. And so JT and I went last night. And so we got to meet some international investigative reporters who were doing some amazing work. And look, you could talk about the U.S. all you want and corruption and all this kind of stuff. We got nothing on what these people are dealing with. It's serious. It is amazing. The corruption that is going on, and these journalists are working to expose it, and they are literally, the left always says, they're prosecuting journalists and all this kind of stuff, or they're, anti-journalists. No, you go over there and you get arrested, okay, and get, sent to a gulag, basically, for lack of a better word. This is what these folks are dealing with. So it's pretty eye-opening to see how good we have it in the U.S.
Well, and that's the problem, at least partially, I think. We have it so good, and with our Constitution, free speech, things like that, we are so far ahead of the rest of the world that we take it for granted. And then we start spinning it into being this awful thing. This goes back to something I have said many, many times, which is the fact that everyone should travel, if at all possible, especially outside of the country at least once. If they can't, they need to take advantage of any opportunities to do what you and JT did last night, which is go speak to some people from other countries. You'll be about 2 questions into the conversation, and it'll hit you like a ton of bricks. Man, we got it good.
One of the people I met with works for a bureau. He's a government official. So there were some journalists and some government officials there, too, from these other countries. And I don't want to say which country that this particular fellow works for, but he works for a bureau that they operate a code of conduct for civil servants. So if you work for the government, you have to follow this code of conduct. And the list of rules, I looked it up last night when I got home. Whoa. And if you violate it, no more job for you. You're fired automatically and investigated, okay? And I'm talking about mundane things that you could violate on this code of conduct. I'm not talking about, taking bribes, which also they're looking for that too, but they're also mundane things that you and I probably do all the time. Drinking alcohol, following certain social media accounts. Can't do that, buddy. You get fired from your job and you get investigated and possibly arrested.
You have to be a saint living a perfect life in countries like that to make it. And even then, half the time you don't make it, all you got to do is accidentally disagree with the wrong person one time, and you've got a problem.
And this one other fellow that I was talking to, this particular country has a new president, and I said, how do you like the new president? Just to, make conversation. I honestly had no opinion of this president or, how well or bad he's doing in his job. I just said, how do you like the new president? Again, just to make conversation. And it was like, he looked around and he was like, love him.
He's fantastic. We could not ask for better. That kind of answer. Yeah. I've gotten those before talking to people, and I'm like, oh, okay, no, I'm not going to narc you out, dude. It's okay. You're here. We criticize everybody. That's what we do for fun in America, but they don't get that. But this, to me, what you're talking about that you got to experience last night underlines part of the problems that we have connecting with people in other countries. Each side, both us and these other countries, do not understand the perspective and the life of the other side.
Nope.
Just don't. You think you do. You think and at best you have a surface level view of how they live their life. You don't understand fundamentally just how different their life is from yours.
Yeah, it's very different, and the people that we were talking to last night, most of these nations, for where they are at, they do pretty well, but internationally they are very poor. And they're working to improve that. And there have been some improvements made. I will say this. It's better, as one gentleman told me last night, he says, look, I would take what I have now over what I experienced in the 90s when this particular country had a military dictatorship any day of the week, buddy. I'd rather deal with corruption and, having to toe the line a little bit versus what we dealt with back then. So in some of these countries, it is getting better, but in others, it is much worse. And so, yes, when I hear these stories, I don't complain, about my government as much.
Yeah, well, one other thing you just mentioned, I want to focus on this for a second, personal experience here. And I know you've traveled overseas, but this technically doesn't count as overseas, but at the beginning of last year, my wife and I took off, and we spent a week in Medellin, Colombia. Why did we go there? Because we saw it on a map and said, that looks interesting, and went there. We were actually originally going to go to Ecuador, and 2 weeks before the trip, they had some problems in Ecuador with people getting gunned down in the streets and arrested and everything else. And I called an audible and said, we're going somewhere else. We got to change everything. So we went to Medellin. Had a wonderful time. Great people. Great country, parts of it. But we get there, and it was absolutely mind-blowing, the difference economically. Here's what I mean by that. The Colombian peso is so devalued compared to the American dollar. We went to a grocery store. We got so many groceries for our Airbnb that we were staying in for the week. We got so many groceries that I couldn't carry them all. We both were completely loaded down. We're talking like 10, 15 bags. And I paid for it, got the change, went on. And my wife asked me, said, how much was that? How much did we just spend? And I did the conversion And then I did it again, and I said, not quite $20. I mean, it is amazing the difference economically. If you show up and you get paid American, but you're spending Colombian, you are a wealthy, wealthy person in that country. You really are. And that's the case in a lot of countries. So again, it's another example of appreciate what you've got. Acknowledge what we have here in America that we take for granted and kind of wave our hand and go, it's not that big of a deal. We really stink. No, we really don't.
We really don't. I was in Greece. This was probably 2016. And we were way over there. We were going to go to Turkey, which is just across the water. And we got news that day there had been a coup attempt in Turkey. And so the people that we were with said, ain't going there today. Sorry. And this is just it's like our Tuesday. It was a coup attempt over there. Just
imagine you're sitting around and you're going, well, this weekend, why don't we go down to New Orleans and there's a coup in Louisiana. We can't go.
We're under a curfew. Can't leave the house.
Yeah. That's everyday reality, just about everywhere else to some extent or another. And then we've got us. Man, we're good, is what I'm saying. We continue on this Friday morning on Mornings here on SuperTalk Mississippi. Right after this, keep it here.
From the Venable Glass.
Wake up, get up, and start your day right with Mornings with Richard Cross here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Of Starkville. Let me explain. The National Weather Service office in Jackson just put out a graphic on Facebook just a couple of minutes ago during the break, actually, outlining the temperatures for the coming week, starting today and going all the way through next Friday. And we've been hearing about the cooler weather, the nicer weather. And let me say this, no matter what it says on the thermometer, the humidity is going to go down. So we'll have a better time of it, I guess, pretty much over the entire state. But I'm looking at the high temperatures, and this really kicks in coming up Monday. It starts to go down temperature-wise. I'm jealous of Starkville because on Monday, they'll be the only major city not in the 90s. The high is forecast to be 89 there. Later in the week, by Friday next week, pretty much the entire state is going to be in the 80s, possibly some low 90s down along the coast. So I'm jealous because they're getting there before everybody else. I'll be down here sweating in southwest Mississippi as I usually do because, well, I tell the story all the time. I had some friends back, this was probably 20 years ago, some friends that lived in Boston, went up and spent a weekend up there for some business stuff. And then later that year, they decided they wanted to come and visit us. So they made the trip down, drove down from Boston. I don't know what was wrong with them. That's mistake number one. But then they got here. In the middle of August, they got here. They didn't have small children, so school year mattered not to them at all. So they got here in the middle of August. They pull up in my driveway, and I walk out to say, "Hey guys," and do the usual thing. And instead, they step out of their vehicle, husband and wife. The wife looks at me and screams so loud the neighbor came out of the house. And all she said was, "You didn't tell us you live on the surface of the sun." Yeah, well, I could have warned you, but it wouldn't have been nearly as much fun, and I wouldn't have had the story to tell. So here we are. Got to give a shout out to what's going on right this moment, basically. They are underway over there. Our own Rebecca. Well,
yes.
I don't know if you guys have talked about this, but it's going on today. I am looking, it's the Natural Strongman World's Masters for 2025, and they've got people from all over the world, got the various flags out beside their name. To the left of the United States flag, Rebecca Turner. She is the U.S. champion in this competition, and she's over there picking heavy stuff up and putting it back down to get a trophy. And she is, I have no doubt, because she, to me, is the poster child of what you can accomplish with a positive attitude. That's just who she is. I know you hear her on Good Things every day. Not this week because she's been, again, picking up heavy stuff, putting it back down. But if you know her and have had the honor of talking to her in person and getting to know her, as I have, and of course Will knows her very, very well, she is just as bubbly as she can be. My nickname for her around the office is Sunshine. And it fits, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. She told me she was going to Ireland, and I was like, why? Number one. And
that's a logical first question, yeah.
You know, weightlifting, that's why I'm going to. Of course, why not? And she only... So to go to Ireland for 8 days, she only took a backpack full of clothes. That's it. That to me is even more impressive, maybe.
How? How? We almost had to get a U-Haul the last trip we made. How do you go with one backpack?
I don't know.
I mean, it literally, by definition, she could have carried all the luggage she wanted. She's going over there to pick up heavy stuff and put it back down, so she could make it fine, but a backpack.
Yes.
It's that positive attitude, I'm telling you.
Absolutely.
Every once in a while, it'll get you in trouble. But for the most part, it's a good thing. So sending out well wishes and all the positive energy we can send to Ireland, the noted home of heavy things. And she's over there competing in that, and she is going to whoop everyone's behind. I'm just sending that out there so it can go across the ocean and wind up in Ireland. She's going to knock it out of the park, I have no doubt. But they are actually, I think it's 4 events today that are happening. She is actually competing right now while we're talking about this. Her husband posted earlier this morning, right about 5:30 this morning, I would say he posted, because there's a huge time difference, that they were about to get started and had several events today and a couple tomorrow before it wraps up. So she is literally competing right now. I wanted to make sure we called that out and we'd send some positive energy to Sunshine over in Ireland as she competes in the Natural Strongman World's Champion. She picks up more than her weight. Have you seen that?
It's amazing. She's like an ant. An ant can pick up like 4 times its...
You're not wrong. That's exactly what she's doing. She's an ant. May have to change my nickname for her now. Hey, fire ant, get over here. We'll just start calling her that in the staff meetings. That'll go over really well, I'm sure. A little bit later on in the show, next hour, we've got Christopher Green, law professor at Ole Miss. Nothing going on legally right now. We had the knockdown of the anti-DEI situation. We've got a lot of different things to talk about with Christopher. Then in the 8 o'clock hour, and I love this, and you know me, Will, I've always wanted to do this. We've got the president of North Mississippi Storm Chasers, Stan Dora, joining us. That's when you hear there may be a tornado and you get in your car and drive towards it.
I know, it's crazy.
But, that sounds like fun to me because I'm broken fundamentally. Going to be talking to him, but also I want to get into, did you hear about, and I don't know, we may have covered this at some point, but this just happened last month, the increase in property taxes that's about to happen in Mississippi.
So I've heard rumblings about this. What's going on?
Well, and let me just start by giving credit where it's due. The person that's calling this out is Representative Dan Eubanks. We've had him on the show. I've interviewed him. Great guy. He's the one calling this out up in DeSoto County, but it affects the entire state. He has a fantastic Substack, big, long post he's written on this. Here's what happened. They did not pass that in the legislature. They didn't have to. The Department of Revenue has issued a guideline clarification, if you will. Under the existing Mississippi law, taxes, I'm reading from Dan's Substack here, Representative Eubanks. Under existing Mississippi law, tax assessors are required to appraise real property at true value. That's not what you see on Zillow. That's what is the true value of the property. Well, in July last month, the Department of Revenue directed all county tax assessors to update their manuals and increase their valuation index, raising assessed property values to at least 85% of fair market value, not true value. The goal is to get it up to 100%. That's where this is all coming from. Now, you go to the DeSoto County News. They have a story beginning of this month, back on August 6th, up in Hernando. The Hernando Board of Aldermen voted to reduce the city's property tax rate, the millage, for the upcoming fiscal year, dropped it by 5 mills to offset the increase in property taxes we're about to be hit with in Mississippi. We'll get more into it. If you want to, we'll hit it after the break, for that matter, because nobody knows about this.
Yeah. I want to hear about this.
Yeah, oh yeah, this is a beaut. We'll get into it when we come back here on Mornings on SuperTalk Mississippi. Keep it here.
You're waking up to what's happening. Mornings with Richard Cross. Right now on Super Talk Mississippi.
Welcome back. Super Talk Mississippi Mornings. Dave Hughes with you. As we speak, right this moment, the FBI is currently raiding John Bolton's house, so it's going to be a whale of a day.
Oh, really?
Yep, they're currently there right now.
Oh.
Raiding his house. We don't know about what, although it's really easy to make some guesses as to about what. The New York Post is embedded with the FBI. They've already published pictures from inside the perimeter about a half an hour ago. So, yeah, they're currently raiding John Bolton's house. He's the former national security advisor under Trump during his first administration. And there was some stuff about a book that he says he got oral approval and clearance to publish, and they came back and said, no, you can't do this. And there's been lawsuits, there's been injunctions, there's been all kinds of stuff. Bolton has been an extremely vocal critic of President Trump in his second term so far. Yeah, this is going to be an interesting day in that area of the news. Just wanted to get that out there because it's going on right now. The FBI currently at his house. Or possibly just leaving. I don't know. They got there about an hour ago. But usually it takes longer than that when they're raiding someone's home looking for things. They'll be there a big chunk of the morning, I would expect. Just an interesting little tidbit to throw out there. Back to the property tax thing. Now, I want to make sure that you understand something that came out this week. Redfin Financial put this out. A home buyer, someone wanting to buy a home in the United States right now, to be able to afford the median priced home, the middle. Not super awesome, not a shack. Just normal median home. Redfin says that a home buyer must own $114,627 a year to afford the median priced home that's currently on the market. Now, with the backdrop of those property values, that is the instruction from the Department of Revenue. Instead of going by true value to set your property taxes for your home, they're going to go by real market value, 85% of the real market value. That's a huge jump. I looked at mine, okay, my escrow. My taxes are going to skyrocket. They're going to go through the roof. And I'm talking like 5 times what they are now, if this continues the way it's continuing. Now, here's how this is working. According again to Representative Dan Eubanks, I suggest you go look him up. He's on Facebook, he's on X, he's got his own website, and he's got a Substack, which is what I'm reading from, but he's been posting about this on social media as well. Homestead exemption. The way that works, you get if it's your primary residence, you get a break on your taxes. That break is then reimbursed by the state to the counties. Okay? If counties don't make this change, Representative Eubanks says they will lose that reimbursement, which means homestead exemption would go away. So it's a case of you can either have your homestead exemption or you can, not change the way you're doing the property taxes. That's the way I'm reading this. This is going to cause a big stink. And what happened, why Hernando went ahead and lowered their millage rate to try to offset some of this, and they came right out in the meeting where they voted and did that and admitted they could not make it a net zero. They couldn't lower millage enough to offset the increase in taxes. Couldn't do it. Just not budgetarily feasible, to use a whole bunch of big words. DeSoto County went ahead and sent out a letter I saw a picture of it, sent out a letter to homeowners letting them know about this and that this was going to happen. Because if you don't have an escrow, if you just own your home and you don't get notified in advance, you won't know until you go to pay your taxes at the start of the year in January. And then it's going to hit you out of the blue like a truck. So, DeSoto County did notify everybody. That's why Hernando went ahead and did what they did to try to offset this to some extent. Haven't heard anything else from anywhere. I haven't heard
anything about this.
No, and major hat tip, major props to Representative Eubanks for bringing. We got to get him on the air at some point, as soon as we can get him on to talk about this. Because this is not a small thing. We've heard about getting rid of sales tax and reducing income tax. Not a word about this. This could have a huge impact. I want you to imagine that you're used to going in every January and paying, if you have homestead exemption, $500, $600, $700, up to $1,000 in property taxes for the year. And if you don't know about it in advance, you go in this coming January and it's not $1,000, it's $4,000. Wow. There's going to be a lot of people that won't be able to handle that. That won't be able to deal with it and cope. So this is something we need to start talking about and get the word out about. Like I said, I think step one is to get Representative Eubanks on the air. Let's sit him down in the chair and let's get his take on all of this. But I recommend you go to his website, and I say his website because it has a link to his Substack and everything else. You can get there through his social media accounts on X and on Facebook. I hear the typing. I assume you're looking some of this up, Will.
I am. I'm very concerned.
Yes, and the more you read, the more you realize, yeah, should be. Wow. Because, I'm sorry, an increase from true value to fair market value right now in literally the most expensive real estate market in U.S. history when you compare it to average earnings. Second place isn't even close. Everything is severely high-priced right now on the real estate market. If you know what your true value is of your home, you can find that on your property tax assessment from this year that you got back in January. Go look at that true value and then go look up your house's value on Zillow. Get 85% of that number. That's what your taxes are going to be figured off of instead of the true value coming in January. This isn't way down the road. This is now. Wow. Yeah. You see why I was fired up to talk about this morning. When I found this out, I sat there and I kept rereading it because I'm like, I've got to be misunderstanding Dan. Like I said, I've talked to Dan. I've had Dan on the air. As a matter of fact, you go to your Facebook page. One of the first things, his Facebook page, one of the first things that pops up is a video he shared of me interviewing him. I've talked to Representative Eubanks before. Smart guy, good guy.
Yeah.
He's getting zero traction on this, zero attention, and this is about to hit a bunch of people out of left field.
We've got some text messages in Wayne County. Our board of supervisors have been warning people of this for several months. My property tax will triple, according to this formula. That's from somebody texting in from 601. John texts in. He says, my taxes will go from $9,000 last year to upwards of 20.
Yep. And thank you so much. And keep those coming in if you know about this. If you don't, go research it. Go look it up. If you don't know it, find out what the true value of your home is and then compare it to the price on Zillow. That's how much the amount is going up that they use to determine what you're paying property taxes on.
Let's see. Somebody else says those who own rental properties will increase rental prices to offset the cost increase. Absolutely.
Yes, going to have to, because that's not an insignificant increase. You heard that one just then from the C Spire text line, going from 9,000 to over 20,000. Wow. This is about to hit a lot of people like a truck, and there are going to be problems come January because a lot of people don't know this is coming. Like I said, Will, you and I, we keep up with stuff. That's literally our job. I didn't know anything about this. We got to keep an eye on this. When we come back, you rich yet? We might can offset your property taxes if you win the lottery. We'll take a look at the, hey, we got to grasp at whatever thing we can at this point. We'll take a look at your lottery information when we come back from the Mississippi Lottery Corporation on SuperTalk Mississippi Mornings. I'd say good morning to you, but almost hate to say good right after that segment. But we'll talk more about it later on in the show. Keep it here.
From the Venable Glass.
Waking up Mississippi. From South Haven to Scuba, it's Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Yeah, baby. It's time to take a look at your money, and what might be headed your way, brought to you by the Mississippi Lottery Commission. The Mississippi Lottery, you may experience some crowding at the checkout points right now because of the Powerball. We'll start there. The next jackpot for the Powerball for tomorrow night's drawing, estimated $700 million. I could do some damage with $700 million. The last drawing was Wednesday. Those numbers were 31, 59, 62, 65, 68, and the Powerball was 5. Estimated cash value on that, and this always annoys me when I see people go, look how much I took in taxes. No, if you take the cash value, you get less, because if you take the annuity, well, it builds up over time, and they can give you more stretched out over a long period. The cash value estimated $316.3 million, which I could still use to do an awful lot of damage. So I'm fine either way. Mega Millions, not too shabby. $234 million jackpot there. The cash value, $105.1 million. The winning numbers that we had for the last drawing back on Tuesday, 10, 19, 24, 49, 68, and the Mega Ball was 10. Next drawing, of course, is tonight. Lotto America, $2.3 million is the next estimated jackpot there. Next drawing on that tomorrow. The winning numbers 3, 12, 27, 35, 39, and the Big Bowl 6 out of the last drawing, which happened back on Wednesday. Match 5, $50,000. The current jackpot, the numbers that were drawn yesterday, actually, 1, 14, 18, 23, and 26. Cash 4, Cash 3, and Cash Pop, 2 drawings a day for each of those. Yesterday, the midday numbers for Cash 4, 3, 6, 5, 9, and 1. The evening drawings, 2, 4, 7, 7, and 1. Cash 3, it's a $500 game. You can win $500. If you buy tickets for both and hit both, you can win twice in a day. The midday drawings yesterday, 5, 1, 9, and 1. The evening drawing last night, 7, 9, 6, and 1. And Cash Pop, the midday drawing, the number was a 2. The evening drawing was a 7. There is a ton of money waiting to go into your pocket with the help of the Mississippi Lottery Commission. So go out and get your ticket right now. Because, again, they've done scientific studies. Your chances to win greatly increase when you buy a ticket. It's part of the process.
A crack team of scientists have figured this out.
I'm sure it was probably a government-funded study at some point that costs a lot of money. One other detail that I have found out so far, apparently the reason given why they are currently raiding John Bolton's home, the FBI, is over national security concerns. Now, they're in there, and they're going to toss his house. I don't know what they're looking for. They think they're looking for something. I hope they have somebody with the proper gloves and suit and everything to also search his mustache, because he could have an entire filing cabinet in there.
He has got a fantastic mustache. And a good head of hair still a little bit. The picture that I saw just a few minutes ago.
Yes, it's annoying. Which, ironically enough, so is he. So it matches up. It meshes up quite well. We'll keep you updated. I'll keep up with this throughout the morning and see what, if anything, comes out. Usually it's the case this process will go on for a little while, and then it'll get done, and we won't know anything.
Yeah, that's usually the case. Yeah, as I get older, Dave, and lose more hair, I look at other people's hair and become very much jealous, and he has got a lot up there.
One of my standard responses when someone comments on my beard is, well, I wanted to have hair somewhere. Up here wasn't happening. So I had to go with plan B. Here it is. You do what you got to do in this life, you know? I do want to call out, do want to mention, I don't know if you heard about this, we had a tragedy down here yesterday in southwest Mississippi in Pike County. A junior high football player at South Pike High School. His mom picked him up from practice, took him home, and a few minutes later found him unresponsive, and he passed away. We've gotten no more details on exactly what happened, what caused it. We will find out, I'm sure, but just coming from practice on a hot August day, you kind of have your suspicions. I'll put it like that. But we don't know anything other than we lost a 13-year-old yesterday. That's never a good day when that happens. So heart goes out to the family, the friends, all the kids in that class. Boy, does that have an impact. School district is making counselors available, the usual things. As well they should. Coming up, we've got Fox News, SuperTalk Mississippi News, and then hour number 2 of mornings on this Friday morning here on SuperTalk Mississippi. Keep it here.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, and callers on this show are not the opinions of TeleSouth Communications, its management, or advertisers.
Want to know what's happening in Mississippi politics?
Yes.
You're in the right place. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk Mississippi.
Welcome back. Super Talk Mississippi Mornings on our Friday morning. Dave Hughes here. This hour brought to you by MWG Employer Services. You can call today at 601-206-7966 or go to mwgemployerservices.com to find out more. Will, if you would, keep me updated if anybody else hits the C Spire text line up with comments about the incoming property tax increase in Mississippi. We had a couple of good ones last hour. And for those who don't know what we're talking about, you missed it last hour. Representative Dan Eubanks is putting this information out. The city of Hernando has already reduced their millage to try to compensate for this, but coming in January, they're going to assess your property taxes based on 85% of the true market value of your property, or the retail value, what it would sell for, rather than the true value, which is what they've always used to assess property taxes. It's going to go up, and it's going to go up majorly coming in January.
Bigly.
Yeah. Yeah, it's we got a couple of examples. There was one last hour who texted in and said theirs was going from 9,000 to over 20,000. This is not an insignificant thing. And it's interesting to me that this is completely flying under the radar. A lot of people aren't talking about it. And I have to wonder, as counties are going through their budget process for the year and deciding what millage they're going to assess, do they know about this when they're going through that process and setting the millage? Because if you're going to get a bunch more income in, drop it down. What effect do you think, Will, that is going to have on people having their property taken because they can't pay the taxes come February 1st?
I would suspect that something is going to be done, because if this is true, if all this is true, like Representative Eubanks says, it's going to impact basically everyone in Mississippi.
Yeah.
Because think about it. It's not just people who own property and own homes. If you live somewhere and you rent, well, the person who owns that property, their taxes, according to him, are going to go up unless it is done. Something is done at the local level. That's the other thing is, according to Representative Eubanks, something has to be done at the local level to offset this. And so if you live in a rental property, your rent's going to go up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So this impacts everyone, not just, property owners who have 6 or 7 homes. There's not many of those. And the people that have one home like me, who own their home but pay a mortgage. But people who have already paid for their home and they have to still pay property taxes. This impacts them.
Now, we cast this move against the backdrop of both in Florida and in Texas, they have bills that have been introduced to do away with their property taxes in those states. We talk all the time about being competitive. This is a major step in the wrong direction, if you ask me. In terms of being competitive with it. You got other states talking about doing away with it completely, and we're doubling, tripling, quadrupling ours.
Yeah.
Now, the other question I have is, this was not passed in the legislature. I get that. It was just a restatement of existing rules and policy by the Department of Revenue. Can that be walked back? Can they now come back and go, well, as it turns out, no, we're going to stick with where we're at for right now?
If all this is, again, all this is stemming from Representative Dan Eubanks in North Mississippi, who and Hernando has passed. I guess the city of Hernando has approved a property tax reduction rate to kind of offset this impact. If all this stuff is true, I would say that something probably will be done at the state level, or something will be done almost across all counties and municipalities, because. Look, you say what you want. People who own property, they usually vote.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you triple their property tax,
they gonna vote.
that creates a hill you're going to have to climb. And a pretty big one, too. So, keep in mind, we're focusing on homeowners. You know who else owns property and pays taxes? Businesses.
Yeah. I'd like to talk to somebody from the Department of Revenue, because this seems to be stemming from, again, according to Representative Eubanks, this is stemming from a directive from them. So I would like to talk to somebody probably from Department of Revenue, and we'll probably get somebody scheduled on soon, I would guess early next week, to talk about this.
Well, this word is spreading, and like you mentioned just a second ago, the Hernando Board of Aldermen on August 6th voted to drop the tax millage in Hernando by 5 mils, decreased it 5 mils from last year, and they said the move was intended to ease the impact of the recent countywide property reassessment, which raised taxable values across the city and the county. So that is a tangible vote by a governing body trying to combat this, and trying to make it a little bit more palatable, a little easier to swallow for the actual taxpayers.
Yeah. Because I don't know about you, but I occasionally will get something in the mail. I think I got a few, and this may be related to that. I got a few notice. There was a little card that had a value of my home. It was from the county tax assessor, I believe.
Yes.
And at the time, I was like, oh, what is this? I have no idea. Because, it didn't explain why they were sending it or how I could. It just said, here is your property's tax value or something like that. But it was from the tax assessor, I believe, or tax collector in my county.
That's the people that would be doing this. Representative Eubanks, Dan, in his Substack, I don't know if you got down to the bottom of that reading through it, He's not pulling any punches on this. I'm going to read you this part. If your quote, if your local leaders ran on platforms that they would not raise your taxes, that they would be fiscally conservative and responsible with your tax dollars, and then turn around and tell you there's nothing they can do about any increased revenues they might experience as a result of the reassessment, then he goes to all caps and says, then they are lying to you. Representative Eubanks is fired up about this. My question is, why is no one else?
I think it's one of those things where people don't know about it.
Yes. I think that's exactly right, and that's why I wanted to bring it up and make a big, hairy, stinky deal out of it this morning, because we need to have this conversation, and we got to do it quick. We're coming up to the end of August. We're coming up to Labor Day. That gives us 4 months until the property taxes are payable. We don't have a ton of time. They only gave us 6 months to begin with. I do not want to even go down the path of assuming that it was done quickly and quietly on purpose so that no one would raise a stink about it. But I'm going to go on record right now and say this. If I have a choice between continuing to pay state income tax as it is or this level of property tax increase, I'll keep paying the state income tax. You didn't accomplish much. For my pocketbook, for my checkbook, for my monthly expenses, you did nothing. That's how important this is, and that's how impactful this is going to be. We had that person on the ceasefire text line who knew about it, already looked into it, had a couple of them. It's going up thousands, and in some cases over $10,000. That's almost $1,000 a month that it's going up for that person on the ceasefire text line. This is not insignificant. And we need to be asking some questions and see what's going on and what can we do to address this, to fix this.
Yeah.
And we got to do it, again, pretty quick here.
Yep.
All right. I'm off that for the moment. I'm not promising I'm off that until 9, but I'm off of it for the moment. When we come back, Ole Miss law professor Christopher Green joins us. Absolutely nothing going on in the legal world, but I'm sure we can dig up a few dozen different things to talk about with him, and we'll do that next on Mornings on SuperTalk Mississippi.
The Venable Glass Traffic.
Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk Mississippi.
Welcome to the show.
Mornings on Super Talk Mississippi. Dave Hughes here. On despite all possible inducements to the contrary, a wonderful Friday morning. And we're joined now by Professor of Law at the University of Mississippi. Ole Miss Professor Christopher Green is going to join us here on the show with a lot of stuff to talk about that's going on. So we're going to get right to that. Professor Green, you with me? How you doing this morning?
Doing well. Learning how audio works in the new office here.
Yeah, it's a nonstop battle most days. Let's get right into the good stuff here. The federal judge issued this week that the DEI ban is being blocked, basically, by this federal judge here in Mississippi. Talk about that for a minute. what that means and what the process is going to be moving forward from here.
So one thing to remember, there's a lot of unresolved questions about exactly when you can appeal the earlier stages. So a temporary restraining order, in theory, doesn't go up on appeal to the Fifth Circuit, but a preliminary injunction does. So the idea is, what a preliminary injunction is what is going to happen during the pendency of a trial. So to the extent that there's facts that matter, those would be determined during a trial. So then you have a preliminary injunction during the pendency of the trial. Okay. A preliminary injunction is immediately appealable to the Fifth Circuit. Okay. So if the state of Mississippi decides to take an immediate appeal, then you have a question pending that appeal, is this going to be allowed to go into effect? So essentially, the state of Mississippi can first decide whether to appeal right now to the Fifth Circuit, and then they can ask Judge Wingate, the trial judge, whether he will stay the preliminary injunction pending the appeal. Okay, so you've got the appeal that might be coming soon of the preliminary injunction, and then you have a stay question pending that. And then, of course, you can ask the Fifth Circuit preliminarily whether they will stay it pending that initial appeal. Okay. That would be decided by a Fifth Circuit panel. So there's a three-judge stay panel that decides all that stuff. And it's not clear who that would be deciding that. You can get there's I think a lot more. Most people think a lot more kind of ideological or political diversity among the state panels. Sometimes those are a little bit out of step with the full court. In theory, if the state thought it was important, and if the court thought it was big enough, the full court, all 17 judges, could say, we want to step in just about this stay pending appeal, or could step in about the preliminary injunction itself. And then there is a process for going, even just at the question of a stay pending appeal, of going to the U.S. Supreme Court. So one big question is just to the extent, is this challenge? How much do the facts really matter? Okay, so you have a bunch of things like these English professors coming in and say, well, I don't know what I can put in my syllabus, and you're telling me all this stuff. Frankly, if you look at the merits of the claim, a lot of this stuff really seems like internal Mississippi governmental stuff. So you've got different levels. You've got local entities. You've got state level entities. You've got different parts of the executive. All of this is within the government. So telling the university, it's a state entity, University of Mississippi, and in theory they're supposed to be just doing what they say. There's a special First Amendment protection for people who are acting on behalf of the government. The Supreme Court has said since the 60s that public employees have certain rights. So if this was being used to just eliminate people of one political party from acting as a professor, that would raise some issues under that Supreme Court doctrine. But the merits of the claim they seem pretty challenging, given that it doesn't directly impact private citizens just acting as citizens. There are some questions like, if my kid comes in and asks something, is this going to cause the public school teachers to say something that limits my civil rights as a student? On their face, it seems like a stretch to me, but essentially the question for a preliminary injunction is, in terms of what you're worried most about, what is the easiest to undo? Well, the easiest thing to undo would be a delay. So if you're saying, hey, change this for just the pendency of maybe just a week, maybe a month or something, maybe however long the trial goes, well, that would be more disruptive. So so the scientists always talk about type 1 errors and type 2 errors, errors of omission and commission. is the error of omission more or less serious? So essentially that would put a thumb on the scale in terms of how likely it would have to be. One of the stay factors is, or the preliminary injunction factors as well, how you have to be likely to win. Well, how likely? If it would be a really, really difficult thing to undo, well, you might not have to be as likely. So that's the kind of thing that, I mean, really lots and lots of different judges will have a chance to weigh in on in the coming days. Really, I mean, the stay thing could come any minute now. So, Googling to see if the state of Mississippi had decided to file their appeal, whether they'd ask Wingate for a stay, whether they'd ask the Fifth Circuit for a stay. It's exciting in its way. So federal jurisdiction, one of my favorite subjects, but it's got wheels within wheels about basically who decides and who decides.
Now, here's my question, because the process that you're laying out, and I understand that, but it seems like it could get a little complicated for the end user, if you will, because let's say with the process you just discussed, this was put into place and everybody's sort of making their plans with their syllabus and things like that, like you mentioned. Now there's been a stay on it. And you go, okay, what in the heck do I do? And then after that, you appeal it and it gets put back into place, but you don't know for how long until the appeals court gives a final ruling. What do you do as an end user in this situation? Because you have absolutely zero certainty of what to do from week to week almost while this process plays out. So how do you handle that? Do you err on the side of caution and go ahead and follow the ban as was put into place? Or how do you handle that, do you think?
Well, I think that's what, this has been coming for, really it was discussed, it wasn't discussed for the first time in 2025. And a bunch of people, when this was discussed in the previous legislative session, said, oh, please give us some time to plan. So the universities all got together in 2024 and they said, hey, legislature, could you please just hold it for a bit while we figure out what we're going to do. So it's a little odd to be saying suddenly, oh my goodness, what we're supposed to change what we're doing. And I mean, frankly, if you sign up to act on behalf of the state in this governmental role, you're subject to the people who make the governmental rules. You're subject to Mississippi state law just directly as an employee. So we've all had bosses that kind of come in at the last minute and say, whoa, like this morning, that audio is not working. Do this audio. If you're an employee, you're subject to rules. And if you, maybe they thought, I thought the rules would just never change. I could just use the same syllabus every year without ever having to change it. Well, life changes. Life comes at you fast. AI comes on the scene and everybody's got to change their syllabi to make sure you're actually evaluating students instead of just evaluating robots. This is of the same sort. And it's been a really pretty slow train coming down the tracks. To suggest that, they've been, just tied to it immediately. But in terms of, what do you plan to do? I think you can make a reasonable argument that if you kind of go ahead on the basis of the stay, of the preliminary injunction that's been given, if it doesn't get stayed, it would be pretty chintzy to seek penalties for not reacting quickly enough to a stay of that preliminary injunction, and that kind of thing would generally be in the discretion of the internal people deciding how much to penalize people. I mean, almost all these people who would be making these decisions, their immediate bosses are perfectly fine with what they'd be doing. So the worries about discipline,
Professor, I'm going to have to
are a little overwrought, I think.
We're up against a hard break. Can you stick around?
I can do that. I will talk to you in a minute.
Professor Christopher Green, Ole Miss law professor. We continue with him discussing what sounds like an enormous mess after this. Keep it here.
Mornings with Richard Cross is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
Reaching across the state and across the aisle. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi.
perfect bumper end to continue on mornings here on SuperTalk Mississippi, talking with Ole Miss law professor Christopher Green. And I want to swap subjects just a little bit. We've been talking about the DEI ban, and as I said right before the break, what sounds like has the potential to be an enormous short-term mess before we get all of this settled out. But I do want to talk just a moment, the executive order that President Trump put out regarding voting and voting machines and mail-in ballots. Now, we spoke with the Secretary of State earlier this week here on Super Talk, and he relayed to us it's not a major impact on Mississippi. I think he said only 3% of ballots received in the last election were mail-in ballots, and we have specific restrictions. Can you give us some clarity on this? Because even the Secretary of State said they were calling Washington trying to get some clarity specifically on the voting machines part of that. What kind of impact do you see this having on the state of Mississippi and the electoral process here?
It is very hard to know with some of these executive orders. So, I mean, it's one thing. I mean, just it's very unclear exactly what the authority is for some of these. So a few months ago, one of the president's earliest executive orders was worrying about non-citizens voting, and this is partly just it's a lot easier. Ever since the Baker Carter Commission after 2000, a bunch of people have said, if you're not showing up in person, showing an ID and affirming, the whole process is much more detached with mail-in voting. So the prospects of the risk of fraud it can fraud of different kinds, right? It can be somebody from a citizen of the state of Alabama, or somebody from Jackson deciding to head up to Oxford to vote. All kinds of things could be completely not U.S. citizens at all. But so there's one question: what exactly does the federal government have to do with any of this? And secondly, even if the feds are doing this, what exactly does the president, as an executive order, have to do with it? So we would have to sort all of that out to figure out what the impact on the ground would be. One of the arguments that the federal government can frequently make in these executive order cases is, well, you haven't really been tangibly impacted yet. So the very uncertainty about exactly what the tangible impact is going to be can allow the executive to put off the day of having to defend various things on the merits. Maybe it can't be indefinitely, but it certainly can be put off sometime. The birthright citizenship case that the Supreme Court had this spring was essentially about that. Can you come in and just have kind of class-wide, without an actual class action, can you get a group-wide remedy without having to prove up exactly the impact of the order on particular people complaining? So until you know what the impact is, you might not even be able to litigate at all. But just a question like how much mail-in voting is there? A lot less in Mississippi than some other states. Some states, Washington State, had been completely mail-in voting for a bit, and it was. Obviously they've had a lot more experience dealing with that. But, just what would the federal government, what would the executive branch of the federal government have to prove in terms of, I just wanted to be really risk averse on behalf of the states about fraud. I don't know. I mean, I think it's a real stretch in terms of the federal role in these things. Again, I mean, as with some other issues, the Supreme Court has come in and made a federal issue out of certain things. So, think of one person, one vote. If you add in people voting fraudulently, well, that dilutes the votes of everybody else. So if you think there's a general federal constitutional right to vote, which, I mean, frankly, you go back to the original understanding, the original meaning of the 14th Amendment, that is really tough to establish, absent discrimination on racial or gender or age grounds. Unless you go with the Supreme Court, which of course, I mean, they've been going with for 60 years, so it's not completely crazy. But the idea that the president can come and say, I want as a nation, tell the states how risk averse they have to be with respect to fraud. I don't know. I mean, that's really a stretch. But the federal government does have the power to prevent tangible impacts, for a long time, maybe. And, maybe never have tangible impact. You just telling people, hey, mail-in voting is bad, and if you can convince states kind of persuasively to use the bully pulpit to get them to do that, it could have some changes in advance of 2026. But
that's one of the arguments that I have heard, though, is I've seen some people claiming that, yes, it was an executive order, but it wasn't really an order. It doesn't have the force of law. It was just a suggestion. It was just the president saying what he thought everybody should do, and it's not actually binding. And now we're way off into a severely gray area when you start making that argument.
Oh yeah. It really depends on the verbs they use. I make these findings that mail-in voting is super risky in certain ways, and anytime you give president's emergency power, and that's a big reason we have a president, a big reason we have an executive branch, is to deal with things quickly, that the legislature can't act in time. It's something like this where, the Baker-Carter Commission this is over 20 years old at this point, I think, and, Congress is required to meet once a year under the 20th Amendment, I think, and this is not an emergency other than, the emergency that we're creating ourselves. So it's a little like, what we were talking about a minute ago with the, oh my goodness, I'm so surprised. Maybe that's an emergency that you created yourself. The emergency of, having a midterm election. We've known about midterm elections, for 200 and some years now. So, just a pragmatic question, is this something that we have to have a president to do? I think almost certainly not. But, Congress has to get in the game and do things. Gerrymandering of congressional districts, Congress could pass a statute requiring districts to be compact. So if you're upset about what Texas is doing, what California is doing, Congress could do something. Congress could do something about, maybe mail-in ballots. I think their original meaning grounds would be a lot thinner, but saying that the president's the only one who can do it. The reason it looks like the president's the only one who can do it, the pen and the phone policy making, is because Congress won't get up and do it. It's closely divided, but if we had a serious non-delegation doctrine where Congress could not just pass off stuff to the president, if we said, the hardcore one would be it's only if it's something that requires secrecy or particular speed. Congress would have to. We wouldn't get stuff happening unless Congress got up and compromised. We do this with the budget. The budget for the military, the Army has to. There's a constitutional requirement that be passed every 2 years. We can do that with all the regulations too. We can do it with voting, but we need, the legislators and the Congress people, but also the state legislators have got to do their job.
Well, and I think we're out of time basically, but I think also we're getting into dangerous territory in today's political climate when we say anything would force Congress to do something, because they have seemingly become world-class experts at avoiding dealing with things in a lot of areas. So I don't want to put too much hope out there on that statement. But you do have a point. As usual, you have a fantastic point. I always enjoy talking to you, and I could do the entire show with you, but you have a job to do, and I have to talk about John Bolton's mustache again here in a minute. So we got to move on.
Back.
The walrus is back, and that mustache is harumphing at high speed this morning, I have no doubt. Ole Miss Law Professor Christopher Green, always enjoy talking to you, man, and keep up the good work up there, okay?
Take care. God bless you.
Same to you. Get your syllabus straight. We're watching. Yeah, see, it comes back around. It always comes back around. We're taking a break. When we come back, we continue the final segment of the 7 o'clock hour on mornings here on Super Talk Mississippi. Right after this, keep it here.
From the Venable Glass Truck.
Mornings with Richard Cross. What's up?
Let's get the show going.
Super Talk Mississippi.
Welcome back on a Friday morning. Mornings without Richard Cross today. Dave Hughes in, as usual. And before we get to something else, Will found something fantastic during the break and sent to me we got to talk about. But before we go there, want to touch again on the property tax increase that's incoming that we've been talking about, and a lot of people are fired up. Possibly, it's doubtful, but possibly as fired up as I was when I found out about this. What we're going to do, and this is what we do at Super Talk. Super Talk is where you find out things you didn't know. I don't know if you've caught on to that yet. You want to get the straight scoop. You want to hear what's happening. This is where you get to hear it. And we're obviously can't do it this morning. It's too late. But next week, sometime during the week, as soon as availability comes up, Will, I believe we're going to be reaching out to the Department of Revenue and to Representative Eubanks and get him back on the air to get some clarity on this and find out exactly what in the devil is going on with property taxes, right?
It's one of those things where there's more questions than answers.
Yeah.
So when you have that situation, you ask the people that are in charge.
Yes.
See what they have to say. Just to clarify it, I'd like to get both sides to see what's going on here and figure out what's happening and what can be done to prevent this, because it's going to impact, or it could impact, if all this comes to fruition, could impact our checking accounts
in a major way.
Yes.
It's not, $20. I could swing $20. I can't swing 2,000 at the drop of a hat without knowing in advance. So, if what Representative Eubanks is saying is the case, is the way it's going to play out, this is going to be like a bomb going off in January as people find this stuff out. So we got to get some clarity. We're going to do that next week. We're going to get some folks in here on the air, get Representative Eubanks. I feel almost positive that he will be glad to come on to talk about this. He's a little fired up. I don't know if you picked up on that.
I don't blame him.
And Department of Revenue as well. We'll see if we can get somebody in from there to get the straight scoop and see exactly what. See, for my money, if it was going to be, a situation where I was hosting next Friday or whatever, if it takes that long, I'd love to have them both in at the same time.
Put them in a corner.
Yes, just sit them down there and let them go. Have at it. Get Representative Eubanks to present his case, get the Department of Revenue to respond and say what's happening, and see if we can, for lack of a better term, force a move here.
It's one thing that Bill Maher on his show the other day, this is more political than it is talking about this particular issue. Bill Maher he was talking the other day, he said, Republicans are much more likely to come on my show and get beat up nowadays than Democrats are. And I think that's one thing in society, in media, that we're missing is getting, people together to talk.
Yes.
And figure out these issues. Because a lot of times somebody says something, somebody reacts to something, somebody reacts to the reaction, and it's back and forth. One great thing about Super Talk is that we're able to get people in the studio or on the phone or whatever, and just sit there and talk about it and figure out what's going on, What's the problem? Is there misinformation going on, et cetera, et cetera? Let's figure this thing out. And by the end of it, there's a lot more clarity, and it's not as bad as we previously thought. It's better than what we thought, something like that. What can be done about it, et cetera, et cetera.
That's exactly right. And I think you put your finger right on the heart of one of the major problems to me in politics right now, at every level. At the municipal level, at the county level, at the state level, at the federal level, every single level of politics, there's not nearly enough time being spent talking to each other. Everyone talks at everybody. Yeah,
everybody talks at each other, especially at the federal level. I mean, it's certain people of a certain political persuasion will go on this channel and they won't go on another channel. But what Bill Maher was saying the other day, he said that, he brings on Republicans and he beats them up. He said, I beat them up. They come away with a bloody nose. But at least they're coming on the show. He says,
yes.
He said, I would love to talk to these people from the other side of the aisle. But he says, but I can't get them in to talk to me. He says, because they're afraid of being beat up. And to be honest with you, I think that's why, especially the Democrats have run so many bad candidates the last, 10 years, because those candidates, back in the old days, they would go on these shows and they would hone their message. They would understand how to counterpunch in an argument. And so they were so much better in front of people on the debate stage, et cetera, and they don't have that nowadays.
Great psychological point to leave you with to end this hour. Everything that comes out of the Democratic Party and the liberal mindset becomes a lot easier to understand once you realize it's all coming from a place of rabid insecurity, both personal and professional. Once you figure that out, it all makes a lot more sense. This hour of mornings brought to you by MWG Employer Services. Up next, we've got Fox News, SuperTalk Mississippi News, and then our number final of mornings on this Friday morning right after this. Keep it here.
Grab another cup of coffee and start your day right. Mornings with Richard Cross here on Super Talk Mississippi.
What goes up must come down. Spinning wheel, got to go round. Talking about your troubles, it's a crying sin. Ride a painted pony, let the spinning wheel spin. You got no
Welcome back to Mornings on Super Talk Mississippi. Dave Hughes in for Richard Cross this morning, and sometimes you get unintended consequences, and our next guest knows a little bit about that. Stan Dora with the North Mississippi Storm Chasers and Spotters, the president, they set up fixed cameras to watch the weather, and they caught a fireball instead. How you doing this morning, Stan?
I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself?
Not too bad. Now, I saw that on the X account, the video. You caught a fireball on one of your cameras.
Yeah, we did. We think it was probably part of the Perseid meteor shower, but like you said, you never know what we'll see on one of those.
Well, and look, I want to tell you right up front, I think it's a fantastic service that you're setting these up because they are publicly accessible. You can go check the feed and see how things are going. Where are they going around the state? Where are you putting these?
We're trying to get them, completely statewide. It's just a matter of where we put them will be where we can find a spot, or somebody says, hey, I've got this tower here. We'd love for you to have one on there. And if it's in a spot we don't have one, we're like, yeah, we'd love to do it. So far we've gotten about 22 cities across the state.
And that is
trying to go statewide with it.
That is absolutely perfect because I've been talking for a while, And it's gotten down to a semantic argument now about what Tornado Alley means, but tornadic activity and the frequency of it has shifted over to Mississippi from the Midwest. It's always been out in Kansas and in that area that has been considered the hot spot. Now, you look at the actual recorded tornadoes, we're kind of the hot spot right now, aren't we?
We are. There is some research that has shown that it is trying to shift, into the southeast more. Now, I don't know if it's actually more numbers or if it's just, things like our cameras, radar. We're seeing them more. Out in the plains, you can see 12 miles horizon to horizon, and it's easy to spot one, where it's a little bit harder to see them here in the south sometimes.
Well, that's exactly
there is
right.
research showing confirmed tornadoes
are
moving this way.
That's why we have to pay more attention to this. Now, before we go any further, and I'm fascinated by it, and I'm sorry, hearing that there might be about to be a tornado, so you hop in your car and drive towards it, sounds like a great time to me. But then I realize I've apparently got developmental issues in my past somewhere. What makes you decide to do that every time the weather gets bad?
My family wishes I could answer that same question. I don't know. It's just, I used to be, when I was a child, I was absolutely scared to death of storms. And then over time, I started being fascinated with them. And then I got, I'm loving storms. I want to see one. Why not see if I can do it this way and help save people's lives at the same time?
Give us, if you would, a couple of experiences you and your crew have had regarding storms and going out to chase them.
Well, I've actually messed up and been hit by 3 while chasing. I don't recommend it. Fortunately, they were all weak. The strongest was that one that was in Tishomingo. The years run together 2 or 3 years ago. And, we realized, once again, being in the South, you can't see trees, hills. We could see, some rotation in the clouds. And about that time, we realized, hey, we're in the path of it. And then before we could turn around and get out, it came right over the top of us. So, it was, fortunately for us, it was weak.
That's the thing, and a little safety message to put out here. And this guy and his crew, his team, this is what they do. They go out and do this. They couldn't get away from it. You cannot outrun a tornado. Right?
No, absolutely not, especially here in the South. A lot of times they like to move 50, 60, 70 miles an hour. And what a lot of people fail to realize, that straight line, they don't have to follow roads. So if they think it's 5, 6 miles away, well, they're thinking maybe the stretch of road when it's really 3 mile straight line. And then another thing, if they're looking at radar is really good at telling you what things did, but on best of circumstances, it's going to lag 2 to 3 minutes or more. So what you think is 5 miles away is 2 miles away, and then by the time you decide to get in your car, it's on top of you.
It's too late. The move is always to hunker down, get to the safest place you can get to and ride it out. Because you're not going to get away from it. And you're a testament to that. You said 3 different times you've been hit by one while trying to chase it.
Yes.
That's the other thing. You talk about it going in a straight line. Not always. Sometimes the contours of the earth will change that path a little bit, and you think it's going over there, and it comes over here instead.
In fact, that's what happened with that one in Tishomingo. We thought we were in a perfect position. It was going to go about a half mile, 3/4 of a mile north of us. And then that next radar scan came in. We're like, no, it just turned right toward us. And then, like I said, due to delays in information, it was on top of us before we could do anything.
Let's get back to talking about the cameras that you're putting in. You said, I think, 22 different towns in Mississippi. You have one up?
Yes.
Yes,
correct.
This is a fantastic thing that you're doing, because it's going to improve safety. Nothing I don't care how good the technology in other areas get in terms of forecasting and radar and things like that. If you can lay your eyes on it, it takes it up to a different level in being able to figure out what to do, doesn't it?
It does. I read some research a few years ago that people are 75% more likely to take shelter if they know a tornado is actually on the ground and not one of those, a storm capable of producing a tornado. But like I said, radar in the best of situation can lag 3 to 5 minutes reality, but our camera feeds may have a second lag by the time, it gets to the website where you're watching it, where the National Weather Service is watching it. And then they're up above the trees, they're up above the hill, so they can see what's happening immediately upon it doing it. And I said, this past March, 2 of our cameras caught developing tornadoes on storms that weren't warned, and it was our video that said, hey, we need to get a warning on this.
And that is just such a fantastic result, because literally you are trying to help save lives and providing a tool we wouldn't otherwise have if it wasn't for you and the North Mississippi Storm Spotters. I mean, so full brag. Good job with this.
Well, I appreciate it. It took a lot of planning, to make reality. And if I had $1 for every time somebody said there's no way this would work, no way you could get it done, we wouldn't need donations to fund it.
That leads perfectly into my next question. How are you paying for all this? This isn't cheap. There's no way this is cheap. So how do you pay for this? How do you fund this?
Oh, it's absolutely not cheap. We're doing it. We became a nonprofit back in January. So the way we try to do this, or January of last year, we can accept, donations from private individuals. We sponsor our cameras, for businesses that want to have their logo on the camera feed. And those are our 2 main ways that we try to, fund what we do. And all of that goes toward putting these cameras up. Because I'm pretty sure these cameras, you can't just go to Walmart and buy this kind of camera. This is a little bit of a level up in gear, isn't it? It is some. I mean, it's not, these cameras like this, you can pay whatever you want to for them. We try to find one that's a little more reasonable, that's still, evident. You see the images, they do a good job, we think. So we try to keep the cost as low as we can, but, there's still, by the time you pay the cost, pay the climber, the equipment, the price runs up there. And then you have to pay for the bandwidth. You have to pay for the usage to get the continual video feed out, which is an additional expense. And it's an ongoing expense. You buy a camera as long as it's working. Well, you're not spending any more there. But you have ongoing expenses too. And this, I just want to reiterate again how valuable this is. And you just said your cameras caught 2 developing tornadoes that were not in warned systems. In other words, your cameras are the reason people got a warning that a tornado was forming, right? Yeah, that is correct. And another thing, as good as radar is, one of the main limitations, the further you get from the site, the higher the radar beam is. And radar is completely blind to anything under that beam. And there's parts of the state where the radar beam is 7, 8, 9, 10,000 feet above the ground. And for an EF0, EF1 tornado, it can't see the debris signature, which allows them to radar confirm the tornado. So unless somebody sees it or one of our cameras see it, you can't confirm the warning. Stan Dorrell with the tornado exists. The North Mississippi Storm Chasers and Spotters. Very quickly, if somebody's interested in helping out with this, how do they get a hold of you? The easiest way to donate is to go to our website, www.nmscas.org. And then we have the donate button and then an email where if you want to sponsor, you can shoot us an email and we can get back to you with the details. Stan, appreciate what you're doing. Keep up the good work and we'll check back in with you, okay? Sounds good. Appreciate it.
From the Venable Glass Traffic.
A deep dive into the news and debates driving the day. All on your ride to work. Mornings with Richard Cross. Super Talk Mississippi.
Welcome back. There are any number of people looking for financial support and help, but I think the North Mississippi Storm Chasers are doing a really important job and deserve your help if you can give it 100%. So go to nmscas.org. You can go there. They're a nonprofit. We didn't get to it before the top of the hour, Will. The thing that you sent me, which I think is a really positive sign. We had to make sure everybody understood what we were going to do moving forward regarding this whole property tax increase thing in the state of Mississippi that has flown under everyone's radar except for Representative Dan Eubanks, apparently. And we're going to try to get him and a representative from the Department of Revenue in sometime in the next week or so to discuss this so we can get to the bottom of it, because that's what we at SuperTalk do for you. We make sure that you're informed. This one's a little more fun, though, what you sent me, Will. I love this.
Yeah, it's so, as you know, the one side likes to create a lot of words, a lot of buzzwords. And sometimes these buzzwords, you go, well, what does that mean? I don't really know what that means. And then they start using it so much it becomes part of the modern lexicon. Well, the Third Way, which is a left-wing group, they're circulating a memo that was shared with Politico this morning. So Politico, big news outlet. And a new list of words that the Dems should not use. And I'm totally serious about this. Among the blacklisted terms, the terms that they don't want Democrats using, privilege is one of those. You don't want to use the word privilege. Violence, as in environmental violence. Dialoguing, that's another one that they don't want to use anymore. Triggering, othering, microaggression, body shaming, subverting norms, systems of oppression. You can hear, I can hear certain politicians saying these terms. Certain pundits on TV saying these terms a lot. I'm going to go through some more: cultural appropriation, existential threat to, blank, insert term here, the
democracy.
Climate, democracy,
Our
economy.
democracy is at stake.
Yes. Radical transparency, stakeholders, the unhoused, they're not homeless, they're unhoused now. I don't want to use that term anymore. Food insecurity is another one. Housing insecurity, anything with insecurity, I guess. Person who immigrated. That's another one. Birthing person. Used to we called those mothers, moms.
Mama.
At some point,
women's.
Certain progressives started using the term birthing person because they didn't want to, offend anybody. Cisgender. They don't want to use the term dead naming anymore.
Dead naming, of course, is when you have a transgender person who is a self-proclaimed Jenny. You should never call him James.
Yes.
That's his dead name. That's
name.
what they're talking about there.
Another term that they don't want to use anymore is patriarchy, allyship. Let's see, LGBTQIA+. I don't know if that includes the other, the
entire alphabet at this point, isn't it?
Yeah, incarcerated people. Don't want to use that term anymore.
Prisoners.
Involuntary confinement. That's another one you don't want to use anymore.
You're in the pokey. I mean, this has been going on for a while, and do you realize if they had blacklisted these terms for Democratic politicians a year ago, the average Kamala Harris speech would have lasted 30 seconds, and we would have all been better off.
Yep. Again, so this is a new memo that was distributed by left-leaning think tank, The Third Way. That's 45 words and phrases they want Democrats to avoid using because it puts as they say, I'm reading from it right here, that puts a wall between us and everyday people of all races, religions, and ethnicities. It's a set of words that The Third Way suggests people simply do not say, yet they hear it from Democrats. I would add things like Latinx. That's one that was kind of invented. It's kind of gone away, but it's still kind of out there a little bit as well. Yeah. This,
to me, is the clearest sign we have seen so far that the culture war is grinding to a halt. Because all of these terms have been a part of that. All of these terms have been basically the entire script of everyone that has been behind what we now refer to as wokeness. Those are all woke terms. And when they are telling the Democrats, and the third way, by the way, Bill Clinton was largely involved with third way. Tony Blair was largely involved with third way over in England. Extreme leftist politics. When that group is telling them, stop using all these words, stop saying all these things, they're only doing that for one reason. Because they have figured out, this isn't working anymore. This is hurting way more than it's helping because everybody is onto it and they're sick of it.
Yeah.
That's the only reason they put that list out. So we're winning is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I've heard a lot. There was a report that came out in the New York Times yesterday or the day before where it said that the number of Democrats that are declaring themselves as Democrats, the average Joe out there that's saying, I'm a Democrat on voter rolls, is declining significantly, whereas Republicans are increasing by a great deal. And I'll try to find that article here in a minute. But one thing, they were talking about this on Joe Scarborough, Morning Joe, the other day, and he brought it up to some pundit, and she said, it's because we're not fighting enough. It's not this. And they don't... don't feel like they quite understand it's not only the messaging, it's the message. It's, the thought behind the message that the average American, not everybody, but the average American just isn't for.
And I'm sorry, it's also the messenger, because if you're the kind of person you come across with your speech patterns, as this is trying to address, your attitude, your overall aura, let's use a new age term for it. If literally every time I lay eyes on you, I wish I could slap you, then you're probably not the right messenger to move your cause forward. And they have fallen into that trap. Every single person that has been using these terms, that has been pushing this whole agenda, is at best insufferable.
Yeah.
You want nothing to do with them. They come off as pretentious.
It really does come off as pretentious.
Yes, I'm better than you. And again, going back to what I said an hour ago, it comes across as better than you, which is what you get when you're dealing with someone who is a writhing, seething mass of insecurity.
Yeah, I think insecurity plays a lot in that.
It does. It really does.
I've said this many times, but I feel that talk radio has always leaned conservative because if you talk about a subject long enough, not all subjects, but most subjects, the conservative viewpoint wins.
Yes.
And in talk radio, we fill 3 hours, most of our shows every single day. And so if you're talking about something for 3 hours, eventually the conservative, again, not all the time, opinions vary, but the conservative opinion wins. Whereas a lot of the left-leaning stuff has been more geared towards small snippets, a paragraph, yes, a tweet, a post on Facebook or something like that, where it says, something that seems like common sense, but when you really kind of get down to it, doesn't make a whole lot of sense when you get down to the nuts and bolts of it. Billionaires should pay their fair share. That's one that you commonly see. What does that mean? Let's get down to the details of it, and then you get down to the details of it, and you find out, they probably are paying their fair share, and probably more, but they're also creating a lot of stuff over here that you're not accounting for when you just put out the words, billionaires should pay their fair share. So I've always thought that kind of falls apart, and it feels like to me that because of, especially like talk radio, a lot of left-leaning pundits and politicians haven't ever been able to kind of flesh out their ideas, and so they come up with these terms to kind of make up for it a little bit.
Yes, it adds a veneer of respectability, yes, to nonsense.
Yes.
Is all it does. Because if you've ever been around someone that really believes the way to communicate is to use $12 words and just cram each sentence full of them, well, there's a lot of reasons for that, and none of them allow you to connect with people. We've had left-leaning talk radio shows and a network for a while. They all they all dismally fail. Why? Because it's all about the message. It's all about the stridency. It's all about making sure that you know how smart I am. And they forgot the most important part. You've got to be able to entertain. You've got to be able to connect with the people that are listening. And I'm sorry, entertainment is more valuable than education. Want me to prove it to you? Compare Taylor Swift's annual income to the top paid teacher in America. Let me know which one seems to be more valuable. You can do that with all sorts of entertainers versus educators. That's just the way humans work. And the left will never understand that. We continue.
From Duck Hill to Alligator, Mississippians start their day the right way. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back to Mornings SuperTalk Mississippi. Dave Hughes here. This just in, and a little conversation with Gavin Newsom. Jasmine Crockett, and I'm going to use her words here, said that ICE is just supposed to be a fancy Uber driver for illegal aliens, and we're going way too far. She hasn't gotten the third way memo yet, obviously. Because it's going to take I also just saw a report where there has been a net swing of Democratic voters swapping over to become registered Republican voters of 4.5 million in America. Wow. Just in the last few months. That's an enormous swing if those stats are accurate. And that'll make a big difference next year in the midterms as well. Because that's the conversation right now, of course, is the midterms. We were talking about that third way list. President Trump has caught some heat because he instituted the review of the Smithsonian Institute. And, of course, as usual, they picked one thing he said, and they're running with that as their talking point about focusing on bad things like slavery and the bad parts of slavery. And they've twisted that all out of proportion. That's what they're saying he said. I have in front of me a thing that was put together by the Smithsonian. Okay, I had to double check. I had to go check this to make sure. Because I'm going to be honest. I saw this and my first thought was, oh, this can't be real. Oh, yeah, it's real. The Smithsonian Museum of African American History. The title at the top, it's a big infographic. The title at the top, Aspects and Assumptions of Whiteness and White Culture in the United States. You ready for this, Will? Mm-hmm. Some of the things that they are listing as aspects and assumptions of whiteness and white culture in a Smithsonian-produced infographic. The nuclear family, a father, a mother, 2 or 3 children, is the ideal social unit. Children should be independent and have their own rooms. Individuals are assumed to be in control of their environment. In other words, and they have it in quotes and in italics, you get what you deserve. Objective, rational, linear thinking. Cause and effect relationships. Hard work is the key to success. If you didn't meet your goals, you didn't work hard enough. Christianity is the norm. You should respect authority. I'm just reading from the Smithsonian-produced infographic on aspects of whiteness and white culture. I thought this was like rules of being a human, is what it sounds like to me. Am I misreading this?
That was put out, I think, in 2020.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken. And it was kind of at the height. It was after the George Floyd murder, and it was at the height of the Black Lives Matter. If I'm not mistaken, I may be wrong about this, but I think that all that stuff was kind of put out at the same time.
Yeah.
And it was, like the high watermark, basically, for that type of rhetoric.
President Trump's rationale that he went by to issue that review of everything in the Smithsonian is a lot of this is still hanging around in there, though.
So that particular one was removed shortly thereafter. So it looks like it was put up and then it was removed. Again, this all happened in 2020. But it kind of indicative of a lot of stuff that you saw from national institutions,
Yes.
Government-funded stuff.
That's why it is such a positive sign to me that Third Way put that list out of, don't say this stuff anymore. You're not helping. Don't use these terms. That is the clearest sign I've seen yet that things are swinging back towards sanity from where we peaked out at.
Nature is healing.
Yes, nature is healing.
Yeah, so for reading Politico, it says, quote, this is a quote from someone, their senior vice president. Quote, the Democratic Party brand is toxic across this country at this point with way too many people, enough that there's no way for us to win a governing majority without changing that. Part of the problem is that we're using words that literally no normal person used, that we're sticking to messages that were so overly scripted that they basically sounded like nothing. Circling back as one of them, and that's one that Jen Psaki
yes,
quite a bit. I think their messaging. Again, I go back. It's not just the messaging; it's the message. It's the underlying policy of said message was an issue. But I think it's a lot of Democrats, national Democrats. It's their inability to have conflict with somebody who disagrees with them. I mean, Kamala Harris, infamously, would not go on Joe Rogan, and we know the reason why. Is she didn't want to get asked the tough questions.
Yes.
She did that. Remember that Brett Baer interview she did where she showed up like 17 minutes late?
And cut it off early. And was very combative throughout it. And Brett Baer's, maybe he leans a little conservative. He's not, that far right, really. No.
He's a mainstream journalist who works for Fox News.
Well, that is the word. That's the term that scared her to death. He's a journalist. He's not a mouthpiece. He's not a PR flack. He's an actual journalist who will look someone dead in their face. I've seen him do it with people from both sides, both extremes, and ask them a tough question and expect an answer and not let them off the hook. And that terrified her.
The Democrats that won big, your Obamas, your Bill Clintons, they always had this ability to really talk to you like a normal person. Mm-hmm. You go back and watch some of those old clips of Bill Clinton, and not that he was that radical, to be honest with you, especially compared to a lot of the policies they have today, but Bill Clinton could sit there and emphasize. He had empathy. He could sit there and talk to anybody, and at the end of it, you go, I like that guy. No matter your political persuasion. He just had that ability. Obama had it to some degree as well, although he was a little bit more, I feel, pushed by the media. But Bill Clinton especially, he never would have used any of these terms.
No.
And if he used them, and recently it's because, he's not running for office anymore. But if he was on the campaign trail, guarantee you he wouldn't use terms like systemic or what was it, toxic masculinity. He's not using any of those terms. He would use terms that you could understand, that the average everyday American could understand, and would persuade you to think the way that he thought when he got a voter 101. You go back and watch some of those, and some of them are on YouTube. Go back and watch those debates where they take questions from the audience. He's a master at it, and it's all common sense language that everybody can understand.
That is the secret. You have to do that. People need to walk away feeling like they have connected with another human being who, even if you severely disagree on every single topic possible, you still feel like they see you. They get you. They understand where you're at. They don't agree with where you're at, and they want to change where you're at, but at least they do see you. We have gone through several years now where it has become more and more glaringly obvious the Democrats don't see you. Not only do they not see you, they don't care to see you. That's the impression that they give, and that's not a winning strategy. Look at their approval rating right now for proof.
Yeah, and I kind of put a lot of this on the national Democrats versus local. The national, they've been overly scripted. I mean, they're afraid to color outside the lines at all. They can't take a question that's not scripted out for them and answer it. We saw that with Joe Biden as, he got longer into his term. He had to have the questions written out for him. And the answers written out for him in some cases as well. It just couldn't handle it. And Kamala Harris had the same issue, which always surprised me because she was a prosecutor, that she couldn't really take a difficult question.
Well, let's be fair. She was a prosecutor. If anything ever deserved the air quotes, it's her title as a prosecutor. Come on. Yeah, the fancy wordage, the new verbiage they continually tried to cram down everyone's throat, the overscripting, all of that is the political version of putting layer after layer of lipstick on the pig. I hate to break it to you, no matter how much makeup you put on it, it's still going to grunt. Yes. It's still going to oink, and it's still going to make a mess in the pen. And that's the part of the process we're at right now. I find this hard to believe. Final segment of the show on the way, Will.
Yes,
Where
sir.
the heck did this 3 hours go? It's been a day. We'll put a bow on this sucker right after this on Mornings on SuperTalk Mississippi.
From the Venable Glass.
Morning, Mississippi. You're starting your day off right. Welcome to Mornings with Richard Cross here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back. It's been our day for breaking news here on Mornings. Dave Hughes here. WLOX down on the coast has a story out about an hour and a half ago, we'll say, around 7:30 this morning. According to Jackson County Sheriff John Ledbetter, this is the WLOX story. It says there was a shooting at Ingalls Shipbuilding down in Pascagoula with one victim. Don't know the condition of the victim. Don't know what happened. Obviously, there's a large law enforcement presence at Ingalls. We don't know much of anything else. That we do know that there was a shooting. There was one victim. Beyond that, we don't know. We'll have to wait and watch it unfold as it goes throughout the day. They might have some more information before they get done on middays and be able to bring that to you. But that's what we know right now. There was a shooting at Ingalls. I would love to go 24 hours without discussing a shooting.
Amen.
That would be great. We can't seem to work that out, and I'm going to tell you what the problem is. No, it's not the guns. I'm sorry. It's not the guns. You don't blame the car when a DUI accident happens. You don't blame the gun when a shooting happens. This is basic logical sense. We have, thanks to social media, thanks to the political climate where you are expected to get in other people's faces and scream bloody murder and say stupid stuff, trying desperately to back up your ill-formed point. And also the Republicans get upset sometimes too. We have completely, well, almost completely, lost the ability to regulate our emotional responses to things. Because we live in a world where if something's upsetting you, well, immediately you go all over social media. You grab everybody walking by. You make a big deal about everything, no matter what. And that didn't just start. The whole concept of a Karen has been around for a minute. It's just gotten noticeably worse in recent years. And again, a large part of that is because people can no longer regulate their emotions properly and deal with anything. Now, admittedly, I'm at the front end, the older end of Gen X. And, we learned pretty early on, you just take your feelings and swallow them and turn them into bitter sarcasm. That's the best way to deal with things, and you move on. In case you ever wondered where this came from, there you go. But we just overall seem to have lost the ability to deal with inconvenience, upsettedness, disappointment. Oh, it's not to be stood and something's got to happen. And unfortunately, a lot of people turn to violence as a way to deal with something that they don't like. And that's what we have to change. That's the root of all of these problems. Well, once again, I have wandered off deep into the waters of psychology. I tend to do that. You know that. But, there we are. One final thing, and I would recommend, boy, am I about to tick off a lot of people, Will. At least 82 people.
Wait, before you do that, Ingalls Shipbuilding has just sent out a message that said, quote, "We are urging all personnel to shelter in place and await further instructions. Law enforcement was promptly notified, and this is currently at the shipyard and is currently at the shipyard and responding to the situation. We will provide updates as soon as we have more information. Our focus right now is on managing the immediate situation, ensuring the safety of everyone on site." That's a Ingalls Shipbuilding spokesperson, WLOX, just posted that. And they also said it is too early to provide specifics on casualties or injuries. Our primary concern is the safety and security of our personnel, and we are focusing on managing and resolving this situation.
Which, all of that sounds an awful lot like it's still an active shooter situation.
Yes.
So they are working down there. More details will be coming out through the day, I'm sure. But about to get 82 people very upset at me. I realize that, but hey, that some days that's the way it works. If you have any questions about what might or might not happen with your property taxes, call your courthouse. Ask them. This is how governance works. If enough people squawk about something, something gets done about it. It's kind of the way it works, right? We're going to get some folks in next week. And just to make sure, don't want to drag anybody down with me, that advice, we place blame where it firmly belongs. That advice is Lance's fault. Always blame the guy that's not here. That's a good rule of life you can follow. I've enjoyed it, Will. I enjoyed being back in here with you. We hadn't done this in a while.
Thank you, sir.
Enjoyed it as always. We will do this again next week, 6:06 here on Super Talk Mississippi. My friend, I'll see you then.
SuperTalk Mississippi Media Production.